I'm trying something new today. I've got my questions on my phone. Good afternoon and welcome to Book Beat. Reading books is the key to an enlightened society. You want a key light back there, right?
I'm just gonna borrow this.
I think we're about ready, aren't we, Jesse? Good. Book Beat is a show about books and book readers.
A very odd combination of topics.
We interview book club members. How are your books chosen? And film their discussions.
Trying to find happiness and love in her life.
We also provide tips for forming book clubs
I think you just have to find a group of interested book readers.
and books that are current that might be enjoyable to read. In a society where everything is instantaneous, we're losing that sense of depth that reading can bring that other media doesn't. My name is Sue Ellen Zagrabelny. Well, I can't guarantee Oprah, but I can guarantee Channel 20. Look for Book Beat Sundays at 5 p.m., repeated Monday at 1 a.m. and 9 a.m. on Channel 20. See you then. Hello and welcome to Book Beat. Today our guest is J.E. Serrano. Welcome, J.E.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. He has written a book called The Vasovagal Syncope Vampire. Now, please tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about how you came up with that title for that book.
Let me see. Which question shall I start with first?
Start with who you are and what you do. And
Okay. I'm an author, obviously. I'm also a musician and a filmmaker. Jack of all trades, master of none. Let's see. I'm originally from New York City. I moved to Minneapolis to be with my daughter, who was born here. I met her mother in the Army.
oh,
And then when her mother came back here, I came here to join them. Let's see, what else? The book. The book actually came about because when I was a bit younger, I was a musician, and I had gotten deathly ill. I had contracted meningitis.
ooh,
Yes. And so for a number of years, I had to drop out of the music scene, of course. And on my road to recovery, I decided to write a book. And so I wanted to write something that had a familiar genre, yet an original spin to it. And so I tried to think, vampirism is a very familiar and popular genre. However, there's nothing really original about it. And so the original spin I found was, why not have a vampire that fainted at the sight of blood? And so I spoke with my doctor, and I said, hey, doc, what's the medical terminology for someone that faints at the sight of blood? And that's where the title comes from.
vasovagal syncope. Yes.
Right, and that's not only to blood, of course. I mean, the fainting goats,
Yeah.
people have heard of that, of course. They suffer from a form of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just thought that would be a great thing to bring upon a supposed immortal. How would this immortal feed if he fainted at the sight of blood? And this is how I really got into this particular spin on the genre. And that allowed me to take it to places that I didn't think I'd be able to take it.
So the illness brought you to the writing. What else do you write?
Well, I'm a published songwriter.
Okay.
I'm a poet of sorts. Um, my father taught me, he emphasized the fact that because I'm of Spanish descent, and because we are in America, I want that to be your primary language. And so the first books I was reading was the dictionary, the thesaurus. What do you call an educated dinosaur? A thesaurus, haha. Anyway, sorry, that was bad.
That was very
Well, I know
bad.
that was very bad. So, and then I started reading things like, well, the Bible, of course, and philosophy such as Plato, Aristotle, Confucius, Lao Tzu, and
Widely read.
widely read, yeah.
Oh, cool. We talked a little bit about what the vasovagal syncope means, but what about your characters? Who are your characters in your book?
The protagonist is a Spanish nobleman named Diego, and he's a crusader that joins Richard the Lionheart's crusade. And that's what gets him to go to Damascus, where he meets the original vampire, who, interestingly enough, is the son of Adam, Cain. So Cain was cursed by witches, and this is how he becomes a vampire. And so Diego runs into Cain in Damascus, gets bitten, becomes converted, and however, because of his supposed betrayal to the cause of the Crusades, Diego is cursed.
Oh,
And the curse was, you will faint at the sight of blood.
so
So he carries what he does, in fact, because Cain made him, he carries a part of Cain's curse, because Cain slaying Abel drew blood from Abel, and so now blood would become repellent to Diego. And so Diego has a very interesting time trying to overcome this handicap.
I would say so.
Yeah.
So does it all take place in Damascus?
No, not at all. Actually, it kind of bounces around the world. It goes from Damascus, it goes to India, it goes to France, it goes to Greece, it goes to Egypt. It kind of travels around.
Oh, right. Without giving away too much, would you like to read something from the book, or?
Well, you know, I could definitely do that. The book, I try to keep a very strong thread, so there are not a lot of breaks. There is a small place I guess I could read where Diego first becomes converted.
Okay.
So let's see. So now we join Diego, and he's already found a place where Cain dwells. And so Diego is on the road to Damascus when he's overcome by a sandstorm, becomes detached from his company, and finds a house, okay, and on their way to Damascus, excuse me, they're overcome by a sandstorm. Diego, being detached from his company, stumbles blindly in vain effort listening for any sound of horse or men. There was only the howling wind and stinging sand pelting him, taking the very moisture from his body. He continued, until he saw what he thought to be a respectably large house in a very strange place. Who builds such structures in such a God-forsaken place? Diego asked himself aloud, regretting the stupidity of opening his mouth in such a storm. Spitting out sand, he realized that despite its apparent incongruity, the sand and the wind seemed to suggest he go to the house or die. Self-preservation being what it is, he continued to the odd house. Upon arriving, Diego found it empty. Of course, no one would be here. maybe when there were trade routes long ago, but not presently. He searched his shelter and was taken aback upon seeing the lavishness and relative cleanliness of the house. How could such an obviously wealthy house go unmolested, he wondered. Without much hope, he scrounged around for food. Much to his surprise, which was quickly followed by suspicion, there was a stable where well-tended sheep and a well of clear water stood. He did not earn his reputation by being careless, so he drew his sword and continued exploring his house. It was vast, and it had no business being here. After a while of reconnoitering the area, he finally settled down as thirst and hunger and weariness began to assert themselves. He butchered the sheep, had lamb chops and cool water for dinner. Only now can he say that the house seemed to make everything seem more seductive. Full from meat and water, weariness demanded that he rest. Diego made himself comfortable with sword close at hand. He fell into a sweet, peaceful sleep. When he awoke, it was still night. I wonder what the king is doing, he wondered aloud. He has come to terms with Saladin and made it relatively safe for Christians to pilgrim to the holy city again. A voice answered. Diego spun with sword at ready. Who are you, he demanded. Oh, just a friend, the voice replied. You're no friend of mine, Diego exclaimed. My, the voice responded. And here I thought you Spaniards were supposed to be civilized. If you value your life, stranger, it would do you well not to denigrate my people. My good man, I was not denigrating your people, as opposed to reflecting on a rumored speculation as to the level of civility displayed by your people's customs. However, since you entered my home, your home, Diego interjected. Yes, my home, uninvited. You slaughtered my sheep and drank of my well. I thought pleasant conversation was the very least you owed me.
Oh, wow. That is wonderful. I would just like to sit and chat a little bit about just what we were talking about before we came on camera, because I think getting around to how you write and why you write would be very interesting to our audience.
Well, I have an overactive imagination, I think, for one. Two, I'm an Eddieite. I'm self-learned, self-taught. And it's in many different subjects such as philosophy, comparative religion, so forth and so on. And I wanted to do not a good versus evil book, as opposed to how good can be drawn from evil. How if one believes in a deity, for instance, one would say that God created everything. That would mean he created evil as well. So that would mean that the soup is not just simply good and evil, as opposed to an admixture of both. And from this, I try to draw the character of Diego to be that admixture of both good and evil, a person born of darkness with a clean soul. And to be able to express that effectively, I wanted him to, like in the book, he actually converts a demon to follow him and be good. The conclusion of this book there's a conclusion coming out, part 2, and that will take it to the end of days, Armageddon. And so the Essenes wrote that in the end of days there will be a war between the sons of light and the sons of darkness. And this is where these characters will come into play.
All right.
Yeah.
Is there anything that We have lots of time left.
Oh, good. I
So-
enjoy my time with you.
Well, I'm just trying, is there anything that I haven't mentioned that you would like to mention?
Well, buy my book. No.
Yes, by your book.
Yes. I think that one of the things I would say about writing, for instance, is that it's an excellent outlet for not only your ideas but your feelings. And then it allows people to sit and debate, discuss viewpoints that, well, for a book like this, for instance, it would, it allow people to turn around and say, well, in this part, for instance, there's a chapter where Satan makes himself known to Diego, and they have a very biting, acidy type of conversation where Satan is saying, "You're evil. You serve me," and Diego politely tells him to go find a pig he finds attractive and go fornicate with it. And so, it shows that. Well, what I'm trying to show is that people may at times judge you for your appearance or your belief, but that has nothing to do with your character. Your character is what you make it to be, not what others would impose upon you. I try to tell people, never look for confirmation before you have affirmation. Affirmation being of the self. You have confidence within yourself and a belief in yourself. And unfortunately, especially amongst the young nowadays, a lot of kids are missing out on that. They confuse egotism with egoism, and one is internal, the other being external, and they look for confirmation on the outside before they believe in themselves, as opposed to having affirmation and believing in themselves without having someone pointing, go, "Oh, you're good at what you do,"
We spend a lot of time encouraging kids, but they aren't learning the self-soothing, self-affirming things that they need to learn.
Most certainly. In today's society, it turns to immediate gratification, self-entitlement, and there shouldn't be entitlement. And the only entitlement that should come is the entitlement you earn. Immediate gratification is ridiculous, because what do you learn from that? The artists that struggle most of their lives, these are the people I have great respect for, because not only do they struggle, but they continue in the struggle, even though, like J.D. Salinger, when he wrote Catcher in the Rye, he had a lot of flack behind that. But it's taught, and it was taught, not so much anymore, but it was taught, and I'm sure you may have taught it. Yes, see? And that's what I appreciate. I can appreciate when someone sits there and, come perdition or high water, they continue the struggle.
Right.
And this builds character, not any entitlement, not self-gratification. This doesn't build character. This builds, I believe, narcissism.
Yes.
And so, while it's fine to love yourself, I don't think it's good to be in love with yourself. I think that's very unhealthy. If we were to look at the Bible, for instance, Jesus said, love others as you love yourself, and then you are doing my teachings. As you would do unto the least of yourselves, so have you done unto me. And these are beliefs I can follow very strongly. And Lao Tzu, to flip it on the other side, turned and said, everything derives from nothing, and the universe is indifferent. How does this make sense? This makes sense. I tell people that, have you ever had a prayer that wasn't answered? People say, well, of course. Well, sometimes the answer is no.
That's right.
That kind of follows Lao Tzu's maxim that the universe is indifferent. That if you do have faith or belief in a deity, that doesn't mean that the deity, in fact, is going to pamper you and spoil you.
That's right.
Yeah. So life is for the living, and if you're not about living, then you're about dying. So it's stagnation leads to death. So you have to keep moving. It's a universal law, even unto your atoms. They're always in motion. There is no stopping. So we keep, we have a saying back in New York, keep it moving. You really don't have a choice.
Right, it's move or die.
That's right. I mean, even when you think you're standing still, the earth beneath you is traveling at 660,000 miles, per second and whatnot, or per hour. And there is no standing still. So we have to recognize the fact that we are in constant motion. There are people that sit there and goes, how do you meditate? I can't get my mind quiet. And this also is a misnomer, because your mind is not going to get quiet. You always have thoughts, reflection, introspection, all these type of things. And to be able to sit there, and it's not a question of quieting your mind as opposed to diverting the energies of your mind. So redirecting your thought flow is how we come to terms with ourselves. When someone says to me, well, Serrano, how do you get to that point? My friends call me Serrano. I'm sorry, I didn't say that.
No problem.
Yeah. My friends say, Serrano, how do you quiet yourself? I say, I listen. I ask people, when you have a conversation, do you listen to what's being said to you, or do you think about what you're going to say next? And when if you're thinking about what you're going to say while the person is speaking to you, you're being rude to that person. And it's showing the lack of depth that you have for yourself, which of course leads to terrible conversations and quite a bit of misunderstandings.
And a lot of talking over each other, which is really rude and really ineffective and ineffective conversation.
Very much so.
You mentioned the meditation. I practice a form of centering prayer that is very much like meditation.
Okay.
And it's not turning your mind off, but letting those thoughts just go and coming back to center.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sounds very similar to what you're describing.
It's exactly the same thing, yeah.
And because you can never empty out your brain.
No, only when you're dead.
Only when you're dead.
Yes.
And then you don't know what's.
And then we don't know.
That's right.
And that's another thing. I'm glad you said that. Most people who say they fear death, I would put to them, it's not actually death that you fear, it's the unknown. The greatest way to point that out is by bringing someone to a place they've never been before, and then say, go through that door. And you can watch the hesitancy that leaps up in them, and that's because of the unknown. Why do we fear people that are strangers to us? It's because they're unknown to us. Why do we fear religions that are not known to us? Again, the unknown. So when you can sit there and take a few moments and get to know a thing, that thing becomes less strange to you, more familiar to you, even more welcoming. So I think in exploring the unknown, you are in fact following the purpose of the universe. Perhaps it is God's purpose that we seek the unknown in order to discover him, her, it, whatever the case may be. We tend to anthropomorphize God and make God a person that we could sit down and have a conversation with.
Put it in a box.
Exactly, because we fear that which we cannot put in that box. We have this very strange delusion that if we can name it, we can control it.
That is very true.
And very false.
Very true that we try to do it. Very false
very
that
false
it
that we can do
works.
it. Yeah, yes, exactly. So I find that with writing, it helps me express these type of thoughts that some people would say is somewhat outside the box, you know, but I believe in the universality of all of us. You know, we're different, but we're the same, because we both have our needs. We need air, we need food, we need water, clothing, shelter, we need someone to love us, we need reinforcement. You know, we have those very simple basic needs. However, it's our wants that confound us. It's our wants that drag us into pits of depression or despair, or, you know, what we deem to be happiness. You know, those wants are a very dangerous thing. It's a loaded gun in the child's hand.
And we put that in our children's hands every day.
And we put it in our own hands
And
every day.
in our own hands,
yes,
absolutely.
most certainly. And unfortunately, because our society is a capitalist society, it doesn't delve so much into character and the things that really matter intrinsically, as opposed to what kind of car do you drive, what kind of job do you have, you know, how much money do you have. You know, I tell my friends, I'm the poorest, wealthiest person you'll ever meet in your life. And they'll say, well, how does that contradiction work itself out? And I say, because I love just about everything and just about everyone. And they say, how can you love like that? And I say, because I don't hold things against people. You know, if a person calls me a slur, I hit them back with humor. You know, if a person says I'm stupid, I feel bad for the person. Because when a person prejudges you, they only show their own weakness.
Right.
You know, they show their lack of vision, their lack of understanding. I hate to say it like this, but I have friends I mentor, and they ask me. They say, Serrano. They honor me. They call me Sifu, which is Chinese for teacher. They say, Sifu, what are the 3 basic principles that are most important? And I say to them, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And they say, is there a particular order? I say, no. I say, but without understanding, both knowledge and wisdom are pretty useless. So if you need a pecking order, which most of us do, I would say understanding is pretty high up there. That trinity, if you'd allow that terminology, is part of the basic trinity that the universe offers us. And that is a very simple way of explaining that is the universe operates on the laws of negative, positive, and neutral energies.
Okay.
That is the very foundation of the universe.
Say more about that.
Well, you'll find that in everything, from the micro to the macro. You'll find it in your atoms, you'll find it in the sun, in the stars, in everything. You'll find those 3 energies. When it comes to positive energy, we can look at it as anything that could maybe make you feel good. You know, if I say, good morning, Sue Ellen, how are you? My tonality may sound positive and it may make you feel good. And you, well, I feel fine, Serrano, how are you today? Where if I say, oh, good morning, Sue Ellen, how are you? That may sound more neutral and make you feel, well, that's fine. Where if I say, well, good morning, Well, that may sound negative, and it's all in tonality, you know, in regard to that.
And it's true in music too.
Very much
Those
so.
energies play themselves out, so to speak,
Yeah.
in compositions since time immemorial.
Yes. Let's take Beethoven, for instance. When you hear Ode to Joy, you know, ba-dum-bum-bum-bum-bum-bum-bum-bum. Most people get like, hey, you know, this is very pretty. This is, or if you take Moonlight Sonata,
Yep.
you know, that sounds, to some people it sounds very sad. To some people it sounds very depressing, you know. To some people it may sound melancholy.
Yeah, I've always thought it sounded kind of melancholy, but I hadn't really thought about the whole idea of, I know about positive and negative and neutral charges and atoms and so forth, but I hadn't really thought about it with the whole idea of that everything more or less fits under those.
Most certainly, it's a universal law. That's my philosophy. And it's in everything. It's in sunlight. It's in, you know, it's in water. I mean, the reason why we have water is because hydrogen and oxygen decided to get along, you know, but they had to have a neutral aspect in order for them to get along. Otherwise, they would have never got along. And I find that tone, for instance, as I was saying before, how I say good morning to you may affect you certain ways. This is true in everything, you know, however, my dad used to say attitude and approach, you know, so how you approach a thing and your attitude. So even in silence, you're carrying these three aspects, because if you walk up to someone quietly with your shoulders forward and your brows furrowed, you know, they may get afraid, and you know that
back off.
right, and that fear is a negative reaction to your negative posturing. You know, where if your posturing is positive, you'd probably get a lot more friendly response. You know, in relationships, when people turn around and go, well, you know, how do you run a relationship? Well, you don't run a relationship runs you. And now you can guide it. And the way, for instance, I've been happily married for 20 years. And I use the term happy loosely because I really don't believe in happiness. Because happiness is transient. It's not permanent. And the first thing I try to share with people is be content. Content is a much more maintainable type of feeling, you know, where happiness is fleeting.
And
know.
it tends to go like this.
Exactly right. And that's following the principles of, are you familiar with the symbols of yin yang?
Yes.
Okay, so you have black on one side, white on the other. Where's neutral in that? The thin line that runs in between it, that's neutral. Neutral is so hard to maintain that you're not supposed to, which is why you'll feel bad one day, good next day, and maybe a little bit of both, the following day. But the idea is, my idea is to try to follow the neutral line. The Buddhists say, in wanting comes suffering.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if you can release yourself from wanting, you kind of abate the suffering. You know? So if you don't want that new car so bad you're willing to do almost anything to get it, you'll abate the suffering. You know? If you don't want your mate to act a particular way so bad, you'll abate the suffering. You know? As opposed, I tell people, try not to tolerate. Tolerate has an air of superiority to it. Accept or reject. You know, that tolerating thing is a bit of hypocrisy involved in that.
Looking down the nose.
Thank you very much, my dear. Yes, you're absolutely right. You're looking down your nose, yes.
And that's exactly what it is. It's a self-serving.
Thank you. I like that,
It's
yes.
a self-serving kind of attitude.
It most certainly is. And it's almost as if you're going, look how good I am. I'm tolerating this person here, and yes, you're of a different type, but however, I'll allow you to stay here and be, oh, please.
Yeah, give me a break.
Yes, that's hypocrisy. So yeah, I'd rather you accept me or reject me. At least behind that, there's a integrity, you know, and I'm a person that don't believe in truth and lies. I believe in integrity. In that, to say that I believe in facts. You know, we're of an age. Do you remember Joe Friday?
Oh, yes.
Just the facts, ma'am. Thank you very much. So, and that's what I try to be about. I'm a person that likes to delve into fact, stay on the fact, because truth is a matter of perspective.
That's right.
Right? So if I don't perceive the way you perceive, your truth is not going to be my truth. Right? So if a person runs into the street and gets hit by a car, the person that got hit is going to say, the car hit me. The person that's driving is going to say, the kid ran into the street. The onlooker, who's the third party, may be the neutral party and say, well, that kid was running, and will state the fact as opposed to what the others believe the truth to be. So that's the type of philosophy I try to follow.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. I like the idea of truth being, I won't say relative, but truth.
No, I think that's right. It's relative in accordance to what you perceive.
Right,
Yeah.
and you can't adjust someone else's truth.
That's exactly right.
And I think that's, getting back to the book a little bit, I think that's what Diego is saying to Satan, that, you know, you can't adjust my truth.
Right, it's exactly right. Diego tells Satan, listen, your truth is that because I'm a vampire, I'm evil. My truth is because I'm a vampire, I'm going to use this evil against evil. Mm-hmm. Which is a very strange concept, because I always tell my students, you never fight fire with fire. That's the most ridiculous axiom I've ever heard. Mm-hmm. I won't call it an axiom, it's not an axiom. Because axiom would suggest truism, and that's not the case. You fight fire with fire, you get a conflagration, right?
Correct.
A conflagration. So I would say you always fight fire with water. That's, any fireman would tell you that, right? Mm-hmm. Or sand, smother the fire, lack of oxygen. And so Diego, instead of fighting fire with fire, pulls the air from the fire to suffocate the fire. He says, I'm going to deny you what you need to breathe, which is me being evil. So by denying Satan that, he infuriates Satan and pushes Satan to do things that, while he wanted to do them, he didn't want to do them at that particular time, taking them out of his time frame, which of course messes up any plan. You take it out of its time frame,
Control is a big deal when the person is a control freak. Like,
well, I think with most of us, even if we're not control freaks, there's a little part of us that wants to believe we have a semblance of control.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Right. And the only control we have is over ourselves.
Right, and sometimes not all that much.
And sometimes that's the case, yes. Sometimes not all that much. But if we have no control over ourselves, we have even less control over our situation.
That's right.
And you know, the environment that we're in. Now, we can fake it. There are many people and there are some people that are masterful at faking it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you have mega rich people, you know, and they act like the world is theirs and everything like that. But, you know, like my mother used to say, you cannot take it with you.
That's right.
So no matter how much control you think you have, no matter how much money, how much wealth, how much poverty, we all wind up in the same place.
There's no U-Haul trailers on the back of coffins.
No, there isn't.
To take it with you.
Right.
By
And
any
so
stretch of the imagination.
the only form of immortality I have any faith in is our integrity. So if I'm a good man through my life and I help people in my life, whether they be friends or strangers, because, you know, again, to quote the Bible, there's a man that asked Jesus, because Jesus says, unto thy, you know, thy neighbors be true. And then the man asked Jesus, who is my neighbor? And Jesus said, anyone that you call your neighbor is your neighbor. He doesn't have to live beside you. If a man on the street asks you for $1 and you give him that $1, he's your neighbor. He's your brother, you know. And unfortunately now, because we suffered the misfortune of some of us being born in Africa and some of us being born in the colder climates, you know, nature said, you don't need dark skin. You need light skin because of the snow. You need light eyes because of the snow. No, you need dark skin because of the sun. It had us believing in division, you know, and like the word individual, I find that word so funny. You know, if you break it down, you have somebody fighting with themselves.
Right.
Right? So I'm like, wow, okay, so the fact that there's no symbiosis, you know, reciprocity within deeds, you know, if you speak well of me, I'll speak well of you. If you do well by me, I'll do well by you. Well, the problem with that is that it requires a catalyst to take place. I have to do something good for you before you'll do something good for me, as opposed to just be good for one another and to one another, you know?
Assume goodwill.
Yeah, that would be nice.
That's, unfortunately, that too often that doesn't happen, but that's something that I had been taught is, instead of looking at things negatively, assume goodwill. Assume that the person is going to approach you in goodwill.
Yes.
And that changes, getting that under my belt a little bit. I have to keep reminding myself of it because you don't always practice what you preach, but practicing it helps.
It helps. And then another thing is that you cannot have expectations behind this. This is where most of us fail, I found, is that when you go forward on a good foot, you expect reciprocity. And
It's not.
no. In Buddhism, you'll find an axiom that says, expect the unexpected. And so that sounds very oxymoronic to an American. How do you expect the unexpected? The answer is very simple, by having no expectations.
That's right.
And so if I can just do good for the sake of doing good, not for the sake of being rewarded, because see, that's selfishness.
That's right.
That's not being a good person. That's wanting a reward for doing, you know, doing well. So my suggestion is like, if you can have doing good as your reward, like you help somebody out, I feel good because I helped someone out. There's your reward. Don't look for anything beyond that, and you'll seldom be disappointed.
Right. And with relationships too, putting into a relationship what you would want out of a relationship, but not saying it's quid pro quo.
Quid pro quo, yes. Yes,
Quid
ma'am.
pro quo. Can't, yeah, enunciate, Sue Ellen. It makes such a difference when there's not that expectation, because you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're setting the other person to be disrespected, really. And I came to that light very late. It took me a long time to learn, well, if I did X, Y, and Z, why didn't they do A, B, and C? And that's that's not the way the world works.
Not at all. Not at all.
And it's something we need to teach our kids too, because they get the idea that if they say A, B, or C, they're going to get what they want.
Right. Exactly
And,
right.
You know, this whole idea of everybody gets an award because they showed up.
Ooh, I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, that has been a pet peeve of mine as of late. It's like, listen, just because you showed up to the game doesn't mean you get to play.
That's right.
That is not the case, because you have to practice, you have to put in the time, you have to put in the effort. And this falls into what we were discussing earlier, immediate gratification.
Right.
Just because you came doesn't mean you get to play. And so I just think that we do our children a disservice by teaching them otherwise, by relating in any shape, form, or fashion that if you do this, you'll get this. That only works in science. Mm-hmm. You know, that only works with a given set formula. That is to say, if you take a part of hydrogen and a part of oxygen and put them together, you'll get water. That's chemistry. That's a given. That's a fact. Mm-hmm. But humans, we generally in personality don't work off of fact. We work off of impressions and impulses. And so because we're bound by nature to follow the laws of nature, our first law of nature is fear.
Right.
Right? What you don't know, you don't trust. You know, and because we operate off of the laws of nature, we tend to react off of those laws as to proact off of our sense, our common sense. Like in the book, Diego meets with a demon, and his maker, Cain, tells him, destroy him. And Diego says, no, I won't do that. The demon becomes enamored with Diego because he's like, well, you're more powerful than I am. Why aren't you destroying me? Because evil expects you to act evil because it cannot conceive good. We used to have I used to have a little diagram. I would say, just speaking on angelology and demonology, angels can see in 180 degrees. They can see good. Demons can see in 180 degrees. They can see bad. Man can see in 360 degrees because we can see both good and evil. We can also practice good and evil.
That's
right?
true.
So now we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we want to be practitioners of?
Good question. And so what's your answer to that?
My answer is, on a whole, because we haven't elevated beyond our natural selves, the nature selves, we tend to operate in evil. And that, it's rampant. You can see it now.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it's all over the world, not just in our country, it's all over the world. Racism, prejudice, genocide is being practiced. You know, we have religions that bind people to a dogma that is so you're manacled. It is so binding that you cannot go outside, you can't go left and right, and that's not freedom.
No.
That is not freedom. And we have a very short time on this world. And so, not only having freedom, but sharing freedom, you know, and sharing freedom by saying, I love you. That's free. That's freeing to know that, you know, oh, that guy that weighs 250 pounds and got muscles bulging out of here, we tend to be intimidated by people that are bigger than us. He's not going to come and squash me. He just said he loves me. Or that beautiful woman that I would never have a chance to say hello to just said hi to me, you know? Unfortunately, because It, I would reckon that as to say, when you cross a desert, you're dying of thirst.
Mm-hmm.
Now, will you sip from my glass of water, or will you drink all of my water?
Overdue.
Yes, man.
Yes.
You see? And in drinking all of my water, you left no water for me.
Mm-hmm.
And in drinking all of my water, now we no longer have any water for the rest of the journey.
Right.
So everything in moderation, I guess is one way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
Not being afraid is almost an impossibility.
Right.
However, we can channel the fear. We can direct the fear. And we can say, there is no reason to be afraid of that, using our reason, our intellect.
Mm-hmm.
That is the one thing that can conquer our nature, is our reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like for instance, I have a friend, he asks me, well, how do you control your anger? Well, I tell him anger is nothing but a physical reaction to external stimuli. It's actually in accordance to physics, the heat flow statement law. When two objects run together, they create heat, right?
Right.
Friction. And what do we call getting angry? You get hot under the collar, right? And so, how do you dispel heat? Breathing. So when you breathe properly, you dispel heat. When you dispel heat, you dispel anger, and you're calm again.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can overcome our fear that same way. Breathe. You know, don't tense up.
Right.
When you tense up, the blood cannot flow freely. The blood cannot flow freely. Air doesn't get to your body properly because air travels through the blood, right? And so now you're gonna, of course, you're gonna become afraid or tense, or because your body's locked up. You've imprisoned yourself and your mind as well as your heart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so these are some of my philosophies.
Well, wonderful.
Spooky.
Not as spooky as the book.
Not as spooky as the book. Yeah.
Our guest today, J.E. Serrano. The book, The Vasovagal Syncope Vampire. Thank you for joining us at BookBeat today. We look for you next time.
Be well. Thank you so much. It was lovely.
Thank you.
Oh.
I knew the questions were just a way to get started. I knew there was more that we had to talk about, and I didn't quite know how to get to it, but we did.
Oh, well, you know, it says in the book, in the back of the book here, psychology, sociology, ancient history, you know, so I have a lot to talk about.
Well, that was what I wanted to get at, you know, because the book is the vehicle.
Right, exactly.
Is the vehicle. And so, let's see. Donnie? Can we get some close-ups of the book, or did you start it already?
Yeah. He said yes.
Okay. Let me just
Unhook?
unhook myself.
Okay.
Besides,
I'm your cameraman.
basically, because if we can get just